What? A crash test dummy?
Who knows? He's been wired up to a box all summer. And maybe he's curing cancer.
Hey, did you see that? Do you think he can hear us?
Second Sight is a stealth action game that was developed by Free Radical, published by Codemasters and released on the PS2, Xbox and Gamecube in September of 2004. During its release, reviews were favourable, but it seems that it didn't exactly blow anyone away, nor did it see any great commercial success. The plot of this game is actually quite an interesting one, as it opens up with our main character, John Vatic, a researcher of parapsychology, awakening in a medical facility, battered and bruised and handcuffed to a bed with no clue as to who he is or how he got there. Understandably panicked, Vatic attempts to free himself and in his stressed state appears to awaken some psychic abilities. After using his new talents to escape the facility, John is now on a mission to find out more about his forgotten past. Moving forward, the story is told partly in the present and partly through flashbacks as Vatic gradually regains his memory. It's an interesting tale of uncovering strange experiments and government cover-ups, and most of the characters are quite likeable. For me, Second Sight's biggest strength is its story, as when you spend some time playing the game, you do run into some issues. Most of the game is a lot of sneaking around, hiding behind cover, crawling through vents and generally avoiding detection at all costs. Of course, while you're doing this, you do have some telekinetic skills to help you, such as the ability to move objects with your mind, knock over enemies with some psychic energy, and even turn invisible for a short period. The abilities develop over time and you unlock a few more powers as you progress, and the game is designed to get the most out of them with some light puzzle solving thrown your way from time to time. So on paper, a stealth game with psychic powers and an intriguing story sounds like a fantastic combination, but overall the experience is ruined somewhat by a frustrating camera and unprecise controls. I'm a big fan of the stealth genre, and I feel like I have more patience than most when it comes to taking your time and figuring out how a stealth game's mechanics actually work. The trouble for Second Sight is that it doesn't really have any stealth mechanics, while other big games in the genre provide you with a UI that lets you know how to move through an area. The top-down view of the old Metal Gears is obstructive at times, but you have a radar and enemy vision cones to aid you. Splinter Cell has its dark and light meter, so even if you're unsure where all the enemies are, the game communicates to you when you're covered in darkness and practically invisible. Second Sight basically tasks you with sneaking around, but in order to avoid being spotted, you have to play the guessing game and ask yourself the question, am I too close to this enemy, or am I completely in cover? And it doesn't help that the game's camera prevents you from getting a good look at who's around the corner. There are moments throughout the game in which you do get to let loose with some of the weapons, and even though there is an auto-aim system in play, the clunky view still plagues the experience. You can sort of aim freely with the right analog stick and try to hit enemies in the head, but in all honesty, unless you're using the sniper rifle, you'd be better off just relying on the auto-aim, as the reticle tends to fly all over the place if you try to aim yourself. I don't want to come across as too negative with this review, but I did feel like I was fighting with its issues because it is a game that I really wanted to enjoy more. The psychic powers are a great addition. Being able to throw enemies around is a joy. Turning invisible to get through a room full of guards almost feels like cheating, but it's so much of a relief that you don't care. And causing guards to freak out by making objects levitate is fun to watch too. The shame of all of this is that instead of experimenting with all of your abilities, you'll grow frustrated, and at points you'll end up overusing the invisibility to try and rush through some of the more frustrating areas. A silver lining to all of this is the game's presentation. Second Sight was developed by the same team that put together the Time Splitters series, and you can certainly tell. Characters and environments are cartoonish in design, and its style overall has aged quite well as a result. The exaggerated features go a long way in not only communicating a little of each character's personality, but also make them a little more memorable at the same time.
You know what he's capable of. Without his medication, he's a threat.
Most areas that you sneak through are dark, cold and grim, but it's not something that you grow tired of, as even though there are a lot of levels that feel devoid of colour, it's all fitting with the game's dark and creepy tone. Overall, I don't have any complaints at all with Second Sight's visuals. There is a sharpness to the game that I appreciate, along with some other effects that add just a little more to the game. The lighting seems to bounce off the environments in a realistic manner, and the way that the psychic powers are shown off by distorting the environment is a nice touch. In keeping with its sneaky tone is the music that reminded me a lot of the previously mentioned stealth games like Metal Gear and Splinter Cell. Second Sight has its own dramatic feel with a mixture of synth and orchestral sounds that add a little bit of extra tension when you're hiding from the AI. If we're talking about the voice work, then there is an argument to be made that our hero talks just a little too much, constantly yammering about what he needs to do next as a way to make sure that the player doesn't get lost, but most of the chatter from John Vatic and the rest of the characters is well delivered, if not a little exaggerated.
We're out of time, Dr. Vatic. Can you handle a sidearm?
They said my role was strictly advisory.
Then advise yourself to get some weapons training. My squad doesn't nursemaid tourists.
Second Sight on paper is a game that I thought I would adore, but no matter how much I tried to overlook the shortcomings, the clunky controls got in the way far too often. The great character design, sharp visuals and outlandish story that Free Radical delivered with the Time Splitter series are all present here, but to the best of my knowledge, this is the first time that this developer had taken a crack at making a stealth game, and it definitely feels like a first try. There is a lot of aspects of Second Sight to enjoy, but as always, gameplay is the most important factor, and that's where it falls short. Despite my frustrations with the title, I still want to recommend the game, but my recommendation is more of a shoulder shrug rather than shouting from the roof.